Welcome to Freshwaves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. Today we're going to be talking with Aileen Barclay about walking in the winter. And I know this is a topic that is dear and true to my heart and Aileen's heart, but also to a lot of people who are new to hiking or new to walking in the forest due to the pandemic. Good morning, Aileen, and welcome to Freshwaves.
Good morning, Brenda. Thanks for having me.
Well, we love having you on the show. It's always a pleasure to talk to somebody who's like-minded and loves being outside. You're much more the educated naturalist. I'm more of the, ooh, isn't that cool kind of person. But it's wonderful to talk to you about walking because I know that you enjoy it as much as I do. And there's a lot of listeners out there who really do love walking in the forest.
Yep. It's good for your soul. It's good for your physical body. There's evidence that it's boosts your immune system, the mental benefits of it, and just you get the exercise. I love it.
Yep.
It's my calm place. If I'm having a bad day, I can go out in the forest. I'm known to go for a 2-hour hike that lasts 6 hours. I get lost, not physically, but mentally I get lost in the forest. It's all this stuff to discover, and all of a sudden it's 5 hours later. So it's a great place.
It is. Now, you have a background in biology, don't you?
I do, yes. I have a degree in biology, and I've been working in the field for over 20 years now.
And literally in the field.
Training over that.
You're literally in the field.
Yeah. Not as much as I'd like, but yes. And
now you're working with the Oak Ridges Moraine Land Trust.
Yes, I really love it because, as much as my majority of my career has been educating people on nature, the land trusts typically have an approach of nature first. So when they protect a property, it's not protect a property and put up trails and splash pads and tree climbing and dog off-leash areas, and it's protected for nature. Nature first. Not people, not dogs, not recreation. And that's really important to me because there's a lot of great recreation outdoor areas, but there also needs to be those areas where nature gets to just be nature and not have to deal with the stressors that humans can cause being in nature.
It's a really amazing program. But I've heard that recently you've opened up some trails for people to be able to walk in, like the general public, but you have to make an appointment?
Yeah, so one of our newest properties, the Maple Cross Nature Reserve, it's in King. It's generally closed to the public, as all our properties are. We have both privately owned properties that are under a conservation easement agreement, and we also have ones that we own. So we have 12 nature reserves that we own outright. This one has a land steward on site, and there are trails that are maintained, but we use them minimally. And what we've done is, with the pandemic and everybody out enjoying nature, the trails are surprisingly crowded. And I think it's a really good indicator that we don't have enough green space for people to enjoy for the population we have. And with the demand right now, we've really seen it. So for seniors that are at higher risk for the COVID, sometimes it's frightening for them because people are not keeping their distance out in the trails. There seems to be this mentality that once you're outside, the virus disappears. And that's not the case. And in winter, it can actually be more spread easier outside with the dry, cold air. It's what the virus likes to be in. So you can see it sometimes with people walking when you can see your breath when you're outdoors and it's cold. And you can see people talking to each other 2 feet apart, and they're literally walking through each other's breath. For me, that's a visual of where the virus is. It's in your breath. It's in, the air droplets. So if you're walking through someone else's breath, you're at risk to catch that. Even outdoors, you still have to maintain your distance. It's not mask off, who cares? So that reality is quite frightening for people, seniors that are older, vulnerable, perhaps fighting disease, dealing with other health issues. So they're stuck inside. They can't socialize. There's the mental impacts of that, mental health impacts. Mm-hmm. So what we've done is through a support from the federal government, we had a program, and obviously all the great ideas we had for this seniors program got side-railed by COVID. So we've adapted it, and we're having these appointment dates. So seniors can book an appointment to come and walk this trail in a single direction loop. And so what that does is allows people, seniors that don't feel comfortable on those crowded trails, to have their own space to walk a flat loop. And there's two options. There's a short, like half-kilometer loop with a bit more of a grade to it. And then there's a longer, flatter, it's about 2-kilometer loop. And so they book out, they go out every 10 minutes, and they get to walk and not worry about bikes driving by or off-leash dogs running at them or people crowding and not giving them space or having to jump into the forest to avoid people. They get to just walk and enjoy nature and feel safe.
That sounds fantastic.
So, yes, it's almost sold out.
Really?
We've up into March, so we do them every other Friday. And you get your set appointment, and it's only like 1 car per appointment, so that we're not having people, meeting all their buddies and coming out so that they can hang out there. That's not what we want. We want it to be, 1 household, 1 car, and you're in your own safety bubble, and you get to go for a walk. And we get people that go on their own. We get people that, come out. Maybe they live with their family at home, and they come out as a, whole family unit. It's been really well received, and people are really happy about it. So
that's amazing.
That we can do that.
That's amazing, especially because now they've just released a study that shows that, contrary to what they originally thought, in the wintertime, the virus actually hangs in the air longer than it does in the summer, because in the summer with the humidity, the droplets attached to the moisture and are pulled down quicker. In the wintertime, they're suspended in the air longer. And you can tell that by when you're walking in the forest and someone walks by with a perfume or a scent. Mm-hmm. One of my pet peeves, I find it so annoying. I hold my breath even when there isn't a pandemic. But during the pandemic, that's a great way of really understanding how long these things are in the air, because, the lady's 15 feet behind me and I can still smell that.
Wow.
Smells linger like that. And so droplets are on the air and in the air. And we've been adapting this walk by a group of people and hold your breath for as long as you can. But if you're taking up a good pace, like if I'm Nordic pole walking and I've got a little, my girlfriend with me or something, and we've got our little bubble, but then we walk into someone else's bubble and it's like, okay, hold your breath, but you're already out of breath because you're walking fast.
Yeah. I got this great new hat. I look ridiculous in it, but I love it. It's got a brim. So when I'm birding, I can't have sunglasses on. I'm blue-eyed, so, I'm very sensitive to light. So I always wear a baseball hat, and in the winter I put another hat over top of it. But this one is a fur-lined baseball hat. It's got the ear covers that come down, but I can also Velcro them up if I'm listening, or if it's not that cold. But it also comes with a mask. So I pull my flaps down and the mask goes over.
Oh, neat.
I bought 2 of them. It's the best thing ever. So it keeps my nose warm, but I don't have to worry about scrambling and putting on the mask. I just put it across and walk by people. Wow. And I probably look a little frightening. Someone said, you look a bit scary in that, but I'm safe and I'm warm and it's great. A mask outside it's good to have one on hand.
I think so too. You
can't always get out of the way.
Right. I have one in my pocket, but I saw a lady the other day, and she had sewn onto her toque 2 buttons, one on either side, right by her ears. And as soon as someone walks by, she hooks up her mask on these 2 little buttons instead of having to expose her ears and get them cold outside.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Isn't that cute? And it's really simple to do. Most of us know how to sew on a button.
And, honestly, sometimes, even if there's no one around, I put the mask on because it keeps your nose warm.
It does.
And so, in the summer it was a bit hot and wearing a mask outside, but in the winter it's actually quite a nice thing. It keeps you warm, so why not wear it?
And February is normally the coldest month in Canada, well, in Ontario, and that comes in handy when you've got temperatures that are really getting down there. And even in the forest where you're out of the wind for the most part, it can still get pretty nippy when the temperatures are, below -10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you're out in nature in the winter, I admittedly, years ago, I hated the cold. I still do. I wasn't a big fan of going out, so my winters were really kind of depressing and boring, and I didn't have much to do. And then when I started leading the hikes, I had to be outside, and so I quickly learned what equipment worked to keep myself comfortable, because if you're properly dressed outside, I can spend 8 hours outside in the winter and be completely comfortable.
Big tips. We want to know.
So layering is it. I live in my base layers all winter. As soon as it gets cold, I have them on. So the key is not cotton. You have to get something that wicks the moisture away. And I mean, I go online and you can get stuff. You can pay high end for merino wool, or you can go to Walmart or Mark's Work Warehouse or any of these places and just get a nice thin base layer. So I have them top and bottom all winter long, probably about 10 of each. And then you wear your middle layer, which is your insulating layer. And that's the one that I find with the temperature. I have a system of variable. So if it's 0 degrees, I'll sometimes just wear my outer layer and my base layer. If it's a little colder, if there's wind, I'll maybe put an extra pair of yoga pants or leggings on underneath. And if it's really cold, I have these awesome fleece pants that I got from Mountain Equipment Co-op. But a lot of the fleece pants you get are wide at the bottom. And when you're short, like me, wide bottoms are not your friend because you trip and stumble over them and you don't want to have to hem everything. So they are tapered like a legging but in fleece. And so I have these different kind of interchangeable middle layers based on the cold, and then my outer layer, and I'm so sad because Mountain Equipment Co-op stopped making them. Thankfully, I stockpiled about 6 or 7 pairs. They were the sandbagger pants, and they're my go-to pants year-round. They're stretchy, they're tight-fitting, they're not big and bulky, they're waterproof, they're not totally waterproof, so you're not sweating in the summer. They breathe. Water resistance, I guess I should say. And they're absolutely comfortable. They've got pockets. They're not long and they're not wide at the bottom, so I'm not tripping over my pants. And so that's my outer layer, and I actually wrote to Mountain Equipment and begged them to bring them back. So much I love those pants. And anybody else I see who wears them, instantly it's like this, oh, you have those pants too. They're the best ever. But finding, those key pieces and buying multiples because they might stop making them. Mm-hmm. And then on my top layer, again, I have my base layer. I have my middle layer, which is my interchangeable. Usually it's just fleece. What I've learned, and I'll give credit to a forester friend of mine because I saw him doing it and went, oh, that's great. Rather than having a really big, bulky winter coat, which when I'm, putting people's snowshoes on or pulling out my camera or trying to be quiet, it's too bulky for me, is I get those thin winter coats, but I layer them. Mm-hmm. So you can layer your coats as well. So I have a vest, like one of those puffy vests, and then I have a thinner Eddie Bauer winter coat, and I layer them. And then I can, if I'm getting hot, if I have to go up a big hill or I'm walking through deep snow and I get a little warmed up, I can unzip and let some, cool out a bit. But layering is key, and you don't have to just layer 3 layers. You can do more than that. You can layer your coats. And so when it's really cold, I have 3 different coats on. I have my Eddie Bauer base one, which sometimes is all I wear. I have my vest over top, and then I have a bigger, bulkier one for, oh my gosh, it's super cold out.
Yep.
And then footwear, I'm chronic cold toe person. I have researched and tried on and bought, these minus 500 degree awesome winter boots. They're big, they're clunky. I still have cold toes. I bought those little stick-on toe warmers.
The little hotties.
They're awesome. Yes. And then my riding coach has these boots, and she's like, these are the best boots ever. They're Polish fisherman boots. And we all, yeah, okay. And I finally tried them, and I've now again bought 2 pairs, probably going to buy a third before they disappear. Everybody I know has them. They're Let Me Go horse boots. They're really unattractive, but they are the most amazing boots I've ever had. They're warm. My toes don't get cold. They have phenomenal grip on them. They're a thick kind of flexible rubber. There's probably a proper term for it. They are as light as a flip-flop.
Wow.
So you get the warmth, you get the comfort, you get the support. I don't get sore feet walking for hours in them. They're waterproof, so I can splash into puddles if I have to or feel like it. And they're so lightweight. And those are I don't think I'll ever buy another pair of boots again. And people, what are they? And then I get messages, oh my God, thank you for these boots. These are the best boots ever. I think they're actually selling out now.
Wow.
But, you got to find those key pieces of equipment. And if you have something in your, winter wear equipment that is uncomfortable, bulky, heavy, not great, get rid of it. Find something new.
Yeah.
Like these boots might not work for everybody. I get to find someone who doesn't like them. But talk to somebody. Everybody knows their favorite stuff, and they'll be happy to share because they've tried them out and they've spent hours and hours and hours and hours in them. Once you find that perfect setup of field wear, outdoor wear, all of a sudden winter is not cold. It's not uncomfortable. It's wonderful, and you can spend all day outside without any concern at all.
Yeah, and you just have to add the 15 minutes to your outdoor experience for getting all the equipment on. That's a part of winter that I really don't like, but it's necessary. One of the things I found is that my old snowmobile boots, the ones that you used to have with the felt liners, yeah. the minus 40 or minus 140, they're so heavy. My legs are exhausted, and I walk all the time. I just can't wear them anymore. I put them in the car for emergencies where you're going to be standing around because they're warm for doing nothing, like sitting on a snowmobile or standing around, just standing. And so you got to know which activity you're going out for.
Yep.
I mean, if we're going on a really good snowshoe hike for a couple of hours, I wear my Eddie Bauer, what they call the down shirt, right? So it's the thin coat, and like you said, double it up. I saw the guys at Tremblant, the ski instructors, who are literally outside all day long in minus 20 with the wind blowing and no protection from the wind. And these guys double up their ski jackets. They have the thinner one underneath and then the bigger one over top. And you'll find the jackets hanging in the tree. No one touches them because they'll ski by later in the day and pick them up if they're going to be doing a lesson with little kids where they're standing for longer periods of time without moving and getting warm.
Yeah.
So give us some of the indicators of, I would say, cold problems when you're in distress over cold, whether it be hypothermia or frostbite.
So this is where it's really important to plan your route. So I've done the, certified hike leader courses, and I find that they're not relevant to my world. My world is near urban hiking. Once a year I try to get up to Algonquin and put a good day's work in, but I'm not going backcountry. I may be out for hours, but I'm never far from a road. So for that type of thing, you have enough early warning to know when it's time to head back to the car. And that's why knowing your route is important. Because if you start to feel the symptoms or feel unwell or anything at all, if you don't know how to get back to the car, that's where you get a problem. Because you're out there longer than you need to. If your fingers are starting to get cold and you can't warm them up and you start to feel pain or your toes, that's a problem. That means you got to get them warmed up and you got to get out of the cold. That's usually your first indicator is you start to feel discomfort in your tips, your outer extremities, your toes and your fingers, your nose sometimes. If you ignore that, then you get into a problem where you might not be able to get back to your car in a short amount of time, and it could get worse. There's stories that people get dumped out in the cold and they find them, and again, I'm not sure if this is true, but they find them naked because when you're past that point of hypothermia, you actually feel hot. Mm-hmm. And they're actually taking off their clothes, which is the opposite, and that accelerates the issues. But of course, you never want to get to that point. I've never really heard of that because you don't get, again, my experience is out in the middle of the backcountry. So if you get cold fingers and toes, they all get a bit cold. If they start to feel uncomfortable and you can't remedy the situation by, putting your hands in your pockets or wiggling your toes to get the blood going to it, head back to your car. If, it gets beyond that, And, of all these layers I wear, what I wear as gloves are those thin little dollar store slip-on ones. Because I'm always but I keep my hands in my pocket. Because I find with the big winter mitts or gloves, by the time the cold gets to my fingers, it's so much longer to warm them up again. Where when I have my thin little gloves, I feel the cold instantly. I stick them in my pocket, and they warm up immediately. So it's a faster cold to warm. But, so take off your gloves, because sometimes they can keep the cold out, but they can also trap the cold in. Put your hands, they say put them under your armpits, inside your coat, near your body to keep them warm. Not, don't just keep them in the gloves. If your feet are cold, and I get this all the time when I'm leading hikes with kids, my toes are cold, is to wiggle them. And when you walk, to almost exaggerate your step so that you're almost forcing the blood into your toes and you're getting heat and energy into your toes. And then, as I said, head back to your car. When you're going out hiking, bring a backpack and have these, there's a certain few key things that I bring everywhere with me. I bring my big camera equipment, but I have a compass. And I learned about this the hard way. I was in a property. It was pouring rain. Normally I navigate just by listening to the traffic on the road nearby. There's no trails in it. We got lost in an urban forest. And it was pouring rain. We couldn't hear the traffic. And I said, I need a compass. This is ridiculous. So always have a compass and make sure it works. Learn that one too. Because you may get turned around, and this happens a lot in the regional forest. They think they're heading towards 48, and they're actually on their way to 9th line. Bring a compass. They're lightweight, they're easy. At least you know what direction you are if you do get turned around.
A lot of cell phones have a compass on them, but a lot of cell phones' compasses are inaccurate when you're in a spot that doesn't have good cell service.
Exactly, and that's when you're a higher risk too. So pack the compass, pack those little hot toe warmers. I pack them for kids, and when someone starts getting really, okay, take off your boots, stop, stick them on, warm them up, and that makes a difference. So these little things, a snack, like a granola bar, these little things are really important. I carry a first aid kit, and I carry a tick removal kit. Those are my kind of go-to things, and I think I have a few blisters just in case I get a blister. So, those kind of things are great. So if you do start feeling cold and you're not sure where you're going, you have the compass to get you back, and you have these little hot pack things to warm up your toes and help offset any frostbite or worse. But recognize the early signs and know it's time to get out of there.
Yeah, those are good things to go by. Plus, sometimes if you're walking and you're exerting yourself, you're putting a lot of effort in, your whole body's warm. And then for some reason you have to stop, whether it's to talk to someone, to help someone out, to help someone get their dog out of the ice. All of a sudden you realize you're not moving as much and you start to get really cold. And there are times when you think, all right, I just walk a little bit more and I'm going to get warm. And then you start walking in. I see people kind of wandering off and they look like they've actually been drinking wine out of their flask. And in fact, it's just water. But that's one of the signs I look for when I'm looking for the hypothermia thing. And all of a sudden you realize that they're cold and it's dangerous cold. And everybody turns around altogether and goes back.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is important. And if you're solo hiking, you need to be your responsibility. Don't tough it out.
Yeah.
I hate that. Oh, suck it up, tough it out.
Yeah, no.
You recognize the signs and get out of there. If you're with a group, pay attention. And, people tend to be, I don't want to make the whole group turn back. Don't worry, I'm fine. And then they're not. And then it's a bigger problem.
Yeah.
So, it's okay to say, there's an issue. I need to stop this.
Right.
But again, if you have the right equipment, you shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're finding this all the time, you need to reassess what you're bringing out and what you're wearing.
Okay, we have to take our first little break. And we are talking this morning with Aileen Barclay. We're talking about hiking and winter walking. And we use the term hiking loosely because 15 minutes in the woods is just you can call it a hike, but it's also just a nice walk. So walking in the winter. And I'm your host, Bren Masson, and we'll be back right after this. Stay tuned. And we're back on Freshwaves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. We're talking this morning with Aileen Barclay. We're talking about walking in the woods in the wintertime. And it's a subject that's near and dear to both of our hearts. We love walking in the winter, and during the pandemic, of course, we can't walk with big groups, which is sad in a way, but good in other ways. I think it makes people pay attention a little bit more, but it also brings up the safety issues we were just talking about. When you're walking with yourself or in a small group, make sure you're dressed properly, make sure you have the proper footwear. And one of the things that I've been reading about recently is the fact that there's a lot of snowbirds who are staying home this winter because of the pandemic. And in so doing, they're experiencing winter for the first time in a number of years, and they're not used to it. So we're having a lot of falls, and hospitals are already taxed with COVID. They don't need people who have broken wrists, broken ankles from slipping on the ice. So if you got some suggestions for that, Aileen?
Yes, they're ice grippers. I honestly didn't hike with them before, and I had some really scary moments. And it was stupid for me, so I bought a pair. They're lightweight. You can stick them in your backpack. They slip over your boot, and they give you grip. It doesn't make you invincible. You still have to be careful. It just gives you a little bit of extra traction. And again, a lot of this is experience. Make sure that there's a strap that goes over the top of your foot. My first pair I had didn't, and I stopped to look at a bird or something. Excuse me, and then I walked out of them, and I didn't realize they had actually melted into the ice. And when I stepped out, thinking I had that grip, it was gone. But my other foot was still gripped, so I had one foot sliding while one foot was stuck in the snow. And I almost did things with my body that my body's not capable of doing, like a split. So that's when I went, oh. And then that walk, I just spent the whole time looking down to make sure they hadn't fallen off. And there was a few times I had to go back and get one. So, and if you can't find a Velcro strap to go over them, I've actually tied them on with string. Yeah. Because they will fall off, and all of a sudden you've got 2 feet with different levels of traction, and that can really cause some problems. So get a good pair, make sure they stay on, and have a mechanism to tie them on over kind of the top of your foot.
Yeah, I've got a really good pair of what they call stable Icers, and they're really good because they actually come up over the toe of your boot and up over the heel with two rubber straps at the back. So I put them on before I go out. I even drive with them on because they don't affect my driving at all.
Yeah, but be careful. I forgot I had mine on, and I walked in, and I have a runner carpet. When I first came in, it almost fell on my face.
Yeah, that's true. So they really don't work on tile.
Yeah, or carpet. But yeah, and I mean, you can get them locally. You can get them delivered. You don't even have to go out to a store. They're like $20-$30. They're a must-have if you're going to be out walking. Some people prefer poles. They actually add an extra level of stability. And when we're not under lockdown, the Land Trust does have Nordic pole walking clinics. They're specifically targeted at seniors because they're a really amazing, low impact, high, this, Brenda, high workout way to be out in nature. I thought, it's just poles. What difference can it be? And I did a clinic a couple of years ago, and I was like, wow, what a great workout. And you can adjust that level of workout.
Yeah, in the summertime, I'll tell people there's a difference between Nordic pole walking and walking with poles. And today we're going to do Nordic pole walking. In the wintertime, when it's icy in the forest, I'll say there's a difference between Nordic pole walking and walking with poles. And today we are going to be walking with poles because True. They can be a good stabilizer as well with your stable Icers. And they just give you that little bit of security that you've got almost like an extra pair of feet beside you. And it can be very handy.
Absolutely. So, as you said, you could do it either way. So, when we get back to being able to have in-person events, we're hoping to offer more of them. And we do it in a way that you can come out to the private nature reserve and get to see something that normally the public doesn't have access to. And you and your group, that's registered for the event are the only people there. And you have this one in particular, 80 acres to enjoy. Mm. And so hopefully we can get back to that again because that was really popular. And I think a lot of people that tried it for the first time went, wow, I had no idea that this was such a great workout. So, that's a great way. But yeah, if you're just walking, having those poles is extra stability. Sadly, there's a lot of off-leash dogs. In the regional forest, dogs are supposed to be on leash at all times, and nobody is listening to this. Where my office is, there's dogs have to be on leash, and I am constantly telling people, please keep your dogs on leash. It's not because I hate dogs and I don't want them to be happy. I absolutely love dogs, more than a lot of people. I will know all the dogs in my neighborhood, and I don't remember any people's names. I love them. I miss my dog. I borrow my friend's dog to get, but it's safer for them and it's safer for other people. The stories I've heard from off-leash dogs are terrifying. One lady was telling me about it. Her and her friend were out riding a horse. One dog almost killed all 4 of them. Wow. It went crazy on them. So the one fellow's horse reared up. He got knocked off and knocked unconscious. The dog, it was some pit bull type dog with that big clamping jaw, lunged and ended up grabbing onto the horse's muzzle, its nose area, and basically ripping it off. She got knocked over. She said the dog was almost on her, and then the horse swung around and caught the dog's attention. She said it was things nightmares are made of. This one dog. There was a second dog just barking and running around in circles. But this dog was out to kill and almost did. And there was blood, there was gore, the police were called, and the owners came around the corner with their leash, calling their dog with their kid in their stroller, and then denied, that's not my dog, and tried to run away. Wow. So, that was one of the more extreme ones. But small things like an off-leash dog running and bumping somebody and knocking them off. And when it's icy, it's a problem. They hit their head, they break a hip, especially with seniors. That's a big problem. And other dogs, when I walk my dog, I have to stop walking around the forest because of the off-leash dog. She was 10 pounds of fury. She would either love a dog or decide that she was going to make them her... her slave or whatever. Like she would just suddenly be like, I'm going to own you. And she was so fast and so agile that she would be latched onto their ear and spinning it and drop this dog and so I couldn't trust her around other dogs. So when a dog was coming at me, I'd stop, like she was on a leash, and I'd sit and I'd stay still. And they'd say, don't worry, my dog is friendly. And I'd say, mine isn't. What? That was usually when they'd walk by and Minnie would decide that was the dog she loved and she'd go into submissive role. And I'm like, okay, normally she's not friendly. But you don't know what other dogs are going to react to. Dogs are animals. As much as we love them and as much as they're our pets and our world sometimes, they are still animals. And they still have instincts, and there's dialogue between different dogs and communication that we do not see and do not understand. Under the Dog Owners Liability Act, if the dog you own causes any damage or injury to another person, property, or another animal, you are held liable. So financially, legally, criminally, whatever. That's the Ontario Dog Owners Liability Act. If your dog bites another dog and it has to get stitches and it's $200, that's your bill. If it's worse, it's your bill. As it should be. To run away from the scene is leaving the scene of a crime, essentially. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but that doesn't omit you from that liability. No. If anything, it would probably make it worse because you didn't do your proper due diligence responsibilities. Yeah. So it's good to keep your dog on leash. And right now during the pandemic, I find one of the worst things about the off-leash dogs, even if they're the nicest dog in the world, they come running up to my dogs. And now a person that I was going to stay 20 feet away from has to come right into my space to grab their dog who, is cute and wonderful and wants to play with my dogs, which normally probably wouldn't be a problem, although I still find it annoying. But now they have to come into my space. And I'm trying so hard to keep my social distance, and I can't now because some idiot who's walking their dog off leash is now in my space trying to get their dog away from my dogs.
And when I say to them, you're supposed to have your dog on a leash, honestly, I've been afraid a couple of times. People look like they're going to attack me for mentioning.
Just yesterday, I had an incident with a very, very large dog. 3 of them, but this really big, massive type dog charging at me with its hackles up and its teeth bared. And I stood there and I said, your dogs have to be on leash. And they went, okay, and ignored me. And then the dog starts barking and charging at me. And I said, your dog has to be on leash right away. And then, of course, you're a Karen. But actually, Karen is someone who's entitled and feels that the rules don't apply to them, which would be you, not me.
Yeah, exactly.
And they walked away with their dogs. We're trying to feed the birds. I said, well, do it with your dogs on a leash. It's not possible. Well, then don't feed the birds. And, I had my camera. I'm like, this dog's coming at me. I need to record this. And the dog, its hackles are up. This dog, if it decided to hurt someone, it would do damage because it had that big head, that clamping jaw. They could cause damage. So there are people that can no longer go to the forest because of the outdoor off-leash dogs. They're everywhere. You cannot escape them. People that can't walk their dogs in the forest because of off-leash dogs. That is not fair. This is a forest. It's for everybody. And the rules aren't, again, in place to say, we just don't like your dog and don't want them to have exercise. It's for everybody to enjoy safely and happily.
And even if we're not talking from a human point of view, if we're talking from a nature point of view, dogs can do damage to the natural environment too, can't they?
Absolutely. And people think, well, my dog, actually I had someone say, when I said dogs weren't allowed in an area, says, oh, so how are you going to keep the coyotes and wolves out then? And I laughed because I thought he was kidding. And then I realized, no, this was his understanding of how it works. So I had to then say, it's a different situation. Dogs are domestic. We feed them. They have unlimited energy. We give them their shots. Disease doesn't, have much of an impact on them. We keep them happy and healthy. They are domestic. They are at a higher density than any wild canid out there. So it's not, your dog in nature is not the same as a coyote or a wolf in nature or a fox, whatever. It's completely different. But to nature, your dog is still a predator. So a deer might encounter a coyote once a day, tops, I'd say, and that's probably way too much. They have that energy budget, and wild animals have a very strict, very conserved energy budget. They have the energy to only avoid that density of predators. However, when you have 20 dogs chasing them a day, they have literally run deers to death from exhaustion, off-leash dogs.
Yeah.
And that's a legal one. That's a whole other Fish and Wildlife Conservation Act. There's poaching. There's things like that as well. So there's that aspect, that you are bringing what would be, say, 1 or 2 predators into an area. You're bringing hundreds of them. So from nature's perspective, that's 100 times more stress than they are evolved and capable of dealing with. Now, a lot of them are good and they adapt, but some are impacted. Ground nesting birds. Your dog running off trail, you think, so what? They're just running through the forest. You're not seeing that little ovenbird nest on the ground, which is called an ovenbird because it looks like a little domed pizza oven.
No.
You don't see them stepping through and killing all the baby birds inside because they're so well camouflaged. When your dog's sniffing and chewing on something, you don't know that could be a young fledgling. You don't see the stress level that causes to the parents and how long their elevated heart rate exists after that interaction. And when that interaction happens multiple times a day, that stress level on that bird can again kill the bird, kill that parent bird, and then they can't do their job to look after the young. And so that's why a lot of ground nesting forest birds, they're heavily impacted, and some of them are a species at risk and threatened. Grassland birds, there's the Bender Graves off-leash dog park. Taxpayer money built this big, wonderful off-leash fenced-in park to stop the off-leash out in the meadow areas. And they had signs up, dogs have to be on leash out in this area, but the dogs run everywhere. And so the meadowlark and the bobolink, which are 2 species at risk, ground nesting meadow birds, if a meadowlark gets spooked off its nest, it is highly unlikely to come back. So I've noticed the meadowlarks are not there. There's been, and again, it's personal observation. I don't have the data to back it up, but there's been a decline as the dogs increase. At Cawthra, where I work, Cawthra Nature Reserve, I would always go out for a walk at lunch, and I track animals. And I could tell you what was where. I'd see them or track them. They've opened it up to dogs, which I think was the most irresponsible decision they could have made for nature. And I'm not seeing the tracks anymore. There's an obvious change in the animals that were regular in that area because they've let dogs in now. So nature impacts. We do a lot to mess with nature. We bulldoze, we put up houses. We have these little teeny green spaces, which are the only nature reserves for a lot of our species. And then we make it worse by letting our dogs terrify them, or leaving our garbage, or going off trail and trampling things. Let's try to minimize what's left of nature.
Yeah.
And really think about the impact that we're doing.
Yeah, in the summertime, there's that beautiful little creek over by 9th Line at the base camp forest track there, and you always see the dogs playing in the water and splashing in that little creek, and there's fish habitat in there, isn't there?
There's actually, right where they run through is a spawning area for a very interesting species, and they are less and less every year. And I've said, can we maybe fence it so the dogs don't go in and ruin fish habitat, which should be protected by law because they're sport fish. And no, let the dogs run through. And people don't think anything of their dog tearing through a wetland or running through a stream. They think they're playing. They don't see the damage that's happening when their dog does that. It's like an ATV going through, one ATV is not going to be the same as one dog, but multiple dogs can have a similar impact as one ATV or one dirt bike going through and ripping through a natural area. So, just be respectful.
Yeah, I think that's the key, isn't it? To just be respectful. And it's about education. People don't know what they don't know.
Yep. Hopefully. I really like to think that's the case, and it's not that people just don't care. Sadly, there's a small population of that. And, there's that 80-20 rule, where 20% of the people cause 80% of the problem. So, there's that factor as well. But dogs aren't natural. They were way back. They still have natural instinct. They're still seen as a natural predator, but they are domestic. They are not the same as a coyote or a fox. So letting your dog run through and chase things is seriously stressful and dangerous for the natural world.
Yeah. And it is too for a lot of the people world. I guess we're considering people to be not part of the natural world, but in a lot of ways we're not.
Yeah, and there's also the threat to your dogs. I see these teeny little dogs going out, and I think, without a leash, and I think right off the bat, there's 5 species I know are out there right now that will kill your dog. Mm-hmm. A great horned owl when it hits a prey and clenches those massive talons, it does it with such force it can decapitate the prey.
Yikes!
It can literally knock the head off of something with the psi and the talons as they grip. They have been known to come at small dogs. Sometimes it's defense because they have babies nearby, and fledglings on the ground are very, very vulnerable. And the moms will protect them. So it could just be scratches. I have seen more eagles in the first week of January than I think I saw all last year. Bald eagle populations are coming back strong. I've had them in my house, flying over my house in Newmarket. They are not going to pick up a dog because they can't carry something that weighs more than them, but they can still attempt to it. And those talons are razor blades, and there's power behind them. If they decide to come at your dog either as a defensive way or as a misaligned prey attempt or predatory attempt, there's going to be damage. Mm-hmm. There was an article about a dog being, quote, attacked by coyotes at Joker's Hill.
Yes, I read that.
It was not. It was an off-leash dog that ran through into the grass where the coyotes were hiding because the people were coming, and the coyotes defended them. The injuries were focused around the hind end, and they were small puncture wounds and bites on the buttock and the legs. That's not an attack. That is, please leave my area, and they're nipping and chasing them out, kind of like like a herd dog would herd by going towards the back leg. A predatory attack is neck and throat, not little bites. That was 100% the owner's fault. That was not coyotes. Those coyotes were hiding and hoping they'd pass by, and the dog found them, and they got scared because they had young, and they did what they can't just say, hey dog, can you leave? They probably growled, the dog ignored them, so they were nipping at his bum saying, get away from my babies. That is what can happen. That was a good outcome. Still was a vet bill. There has been worse interactions. It doesn't happen often, and I'm surprised because there's a lot of coyotes out there. Coyotes, good for them, because they deal with a lot of stuff and they don't react. And when they do, they're villainized.
Yeah.
But raccoons, you know this, Brenda, a raccoon will absolutely kill your dog.
Absolutely.
Higher risk for raccoon than coyote because they can get in your backyard easier. Mm-hmm. Skunks are vicious. They are in the same family as wolverines and fishers.
Yeah.
Skunks, they spray. That's typically what they do. But they can be vicious. I had an opossum chase my dog and bite at it. They're supposed to be these docile creatures. But again, when any animal, just like you or I, when we're threatened, we will strike back.
Yep. And
do what we can to preserve ourselves. And so, a mouse bit my dog and caused her to bleed. So, even the little things, not that was a big one. There are a lot of dangers out there. I heard a story about someone was dog sitting, let their dog off leash. The dog was running after something and got impaled on some old fencing.
Oh.
That vet bill was thousands and thousands of dollars. Luckily, the dog survived, but that's terrible for the dog.
It is.
There are dangers that you just don't know are out there, and that's it's another reason why we offered these walks for seniors. I've heard stories of seniors getting knocked down and seriously injured because of an off-leash dog. Not that the dog charged and lunged at them, but it might have just brushed up against them and lost their balance. So, we open up our nature reserve. You don't have to worry about a dog running at you. Okay,
so if people want to learn more about these hikes, how do they find out more information?
So they can go to the oakridgesmoraine.org and type up, there's a action item or action menu item, and you'll see self-guided walks. So on top of having a nice, safe distance, nobody around place to walk, we also try to incorporate some nature education with it. So we'll either have little nature facts as you walk on trees or something. We've been working with this really neat new augmented reality with Snap newspapers. And so you can download an app and we give you a printout and you hover over, the picture and a video pops up and tells you something educational.
Nice.
So we did that last weekend with our Biolympics tracking field challenge. And when you take the sheet out, and if you think you found rabbit tracks, then you open your app and zap over it, and this video and says, you've got a rabbit track, and explains what you're looking at.
Perfect.
So we're doing that to try and get, even though we're outdoors, to get that technology involved to enhance. So instead of having to have someone like me out there walking with someone, which is, not safe right now, we can still give them an animated education, but safely on their phone, while they're out on their own, distance from anyone. So they can still learn about nature as they do their walk. So we're adapting to the new situation and coming up with some different ways to get people engaged and interested and educated about nature.
That sounds great. Well, thanks so much for joining us this morning, Aileen. We're out of time here on Freshwaves.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been lovely having you on board, and we hope to do it again soon, and we'll be talking about different aspects of hiking and walking and all that's going on at the Oak Ridges Moraine Land Trust.
Yes, we've got lots of fun stuff going on, so, follow us, sign up for our e-newsletter, and
get outside and get some fresh air.
Exactly, and learn about nature because it's awesome.
It sure is. Thanks again, Aileen.
All right.
And
Thanks,
we will
Brenda.
talk to you again soon here on Fresh Waves.
Stay safe.